Okay, hey everybody, how you doing? Tekking101 coming to you from my luxurious hotel room in beautiful Vermont. It's a lovely state. I'm up here for a vacation for the weekend, learning how to ski. Well, I skied. I fell down a lot, but I skied. It was fun. All right. So, I really wish there was a break this week for One Piece because just to make it easier on myself. But no, not only was there not a break in One Piece, there was a chapter, but it was also an insanely good chapter, right? So, I'm not in my normal setup, and this is honestly going to be more in like a reaction format. I've already read the chapter, but this is going to be more in like a reaction kind of format where I'm literally just going to sit here and then go through the chapter and we're going to talk about stuff as it happens, okay? So, yeah, the thing that makes it a review, and I don't know if anybody understands this, but what makes it a difference between a review and a reaction is if you're wearing a suit and you have a, well, I guess I don't have a brick next to me anymore. I didn't bring Barry along, unfortunately, but yeah, that's the difference. All right, so without further ado, let's just dive right into this. This will be One Piece, chapter 1042, titled Winners Shouldn't Need Rationalizations, or Winners Shouldn't Need Excuses, all right? And we have the cover page continuing on with the Germa double sixes emotionless excursion. Finally seeing like we're setting stuff up here. So Oven is taking the Vinsmoke book that has Niji and Yonji inside of it. Also, the entire book has Germa double six on it. Like it's a big black book that just says Vinsmoke. So I'm thinking that maybe other members of the Germa double six, like a lot of the clone troopers they had, were also captured. It's just Niji and Yonji were the ones that had the page opened up. We know that Ichiji and Reiju escaped because we saw them on the ship leaving with Judge. So it was probably Niji, Yonji, and then a bunch of their soldiers that they captured. So Oven is holding the giant book over his shoulder and he's walking into one of Brulee's mirror. And the caption is heading to Whole Cake Island, all right? Now, it's important to keep in mind the events of this cover series might be taking place like the next day or two, like after the battle, okay? So just like how Capone Beiji's Oh My Family took place, like, you know, it was like during the events of while the Straw Hats were going to Wano, that's when Beiji was having this adventure at Dressrosa. Kind of the same thing here. So Big Mom might not have left yet for Wano, so that might be why Oven is taking the book to Whole Cake, but it also might be a situation where maybe Big Mom has left already and it's like taking them there to be put into the prison library, which is at Whole Cake Chateau. But Whole Cake Chateau was largely destroyed, you know, during the Tea Party, so I'm not really sure. Katakuri might be there. We might get to see Cracker again during this cover series. Anyway, Oven's about to walk into the door and we see Pudding in the foreground and she's like facing away from Oven, and so Oven cannot see her face, but Pudding is like noticeably pouting, like she's doing the thing where she, you know, poofs out her cheeks just like and so Oven's just looking over at her, and he can't see her face, but he's just like, why is Pudding acting so, whatever, doesn't matter. I gotta get this book to Whole Cake Island. I have had a hell of a week, I gotta say. So he's about to walk into Brulee's mirror and head to Whole Cake Island. So we'll see where this goes, but things are shaping up. This is gonna be a very interesting cover series, to be sure. All right, so we actually start off the chapter not where we left off, because we left off with Luffy fighting Kaido, but now we cut back down to the basement level 1, where we have the Cypher Pole Zero agent, the one that was throwing a fit last chapter because the Gorosei were like, you need to eliminate Straw Hat Luffy post-Ace. He was the one that was like ranting and raving. It's like, what do you guys want me to do? And unfortunately, I can't yell as much because I'm in a hotel. But people are like, you know, oh man, this sucks. CP0 doesn't even get paid good wages. We have no vacation time. And now they want us to go and capture Straw Hat Luffy. You know, I am not God. I can't do this stuff. So he's about to head off, kind of complaining about his job, when all of a sudden Drake shows up behind him. Now, we saw Drake appearing in the rubble last chapter, and he was like very wounded from their last encounter, but he's like, you know, you don't think I'm gonna go down just like that. You know, I gotta take one of you guys with me, right? Something to show for it. So he turns into his hybrid Allosaur form, takes out his sword, which I'm just gonna call the X-Saber, and then boom, stabs it right through the back of the bowler hat wearing boss of Cypher Pole Zero, okay? And so it looks like a very gruesome injury too. Like, it opens the chapter, the first panel is this scene with Drake just running him through and blood's on the blade or whatever. And so the Cypher Pole agent is just like, oh, Drake, why would you do this? And Drake's like, this is me, and this is my justice. And he's just like, I envy you, Drake. Sword agents, they get 5 vacations a year, and they also get maternity leave. We don't have any of that stuff in Aegis Zero. and that is why you must die. And so then, just when you think like, okay, this Cypher Pull Zero agent, he's been in a few battles up until now, right? He fought Drake initially and won, and then he fought Izo along with Maha. Now, Maha got taken down, but you also get the impression this guy took some damage in that battle as well. He seemed very winded, seemed like he was beat up a bit. So I'm thinking, oh man, this is great. Drake, mops up the remaining members of Cypher Pull Zero, not a big deal, and then we could just cut to Luffy versus Kaido for the remainder of this arc. But no, just as he's impaled on the sword, he literally Sorus off the sword. So the sword is like impaling him. There's like a good foot of the sword sticking out of the front of this guy's chest, covered in blood. And so he just slides off the edge of the sword using Soru. Drake's like, what? He spins around and then boom, Shigon right in the neck. He hits Drake. And Drake, remember, is in his Allosaur form. He's in like the boosted defense stats that all ancient zones have, that he's a dinosaur. And boom, you get like that probably like made it so he didn't die. Maybe if he was in his human form, he would have died from this hit. But no, he's definitely not going to die, but he gets hit pretty hard. Blood gushes out of his mouth. You see this hole in his throat, and as he falls backwards. So yeah, man, these Cypher Pull Zero agents, the masked ones, they are no joke. It's kind of like a back and forth because Robin was saying that they're very dangerous because they're the masked members. But then we saw a heavily wounded Izo manage to take one of them down and injure another one. So we're like, oh wow, I guess they're not that impressive. But then Drake stabs ones right through the heart, basically. I guess he missed the heart. Maybe they have more than one heart. So maybe they're like, Cypher Pull Zero agents, we have like 7 hearts or whatever. Just like, oh damn it. You know what? Honestly though, that's a little bit going too far with it, but it's not impossible that the masked members of Cypher Pull Ages Zero might have actually been experimented upon in some way by Vegapunk. They might be like the next step, like the pacifistas are kind of like that, but now it's like humans kind of turning into human Terminators kind of a situation. That's not entirely impossible to think. But anyway, yeah. So Drake gets hit and he goes down, and that actually transitions into the music of the Fire Festival. So it's just as Drake is getting hit and he's bleeding and coughing up blood, it's just like ba 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 festival music ba 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 ba. I don't know festival music, but that's the closest I got. Anyway, so we cut over to the flower capital now, where it's right at the end of the festival. And the last thing, we knew this, it was explained earlier, the last thing they do before the festival ends properly is they write their wishes on little lanterns, and the paper lanterns float up to the sky, and oh, such a beautiful spectacle it is. So we see Otoko there, and an old man is helping her put the wish on the lantern and lighting it. He's like, all right there, did you write your wish down? And she's like, yeah. It's like, okay. And then like, we'll float it up. Well, maybe the gods will grant our wishes this year, all right? And make your dreams fly. And so everyone's playing shamisen and biwas and just having a good old time. Oh, yeah. All right, so we cut to Onigashima's rooftop, where it's going down, ladies and gentlemen. We got Luffy versus Kaido in a non-stop melee. A non-stop melee from Luffy's perspective. So he went into Snake Man last chapter, although it actually kind of looks in this one frame, he actually looks more bulky, like he's in Bound Man, but whatever. He's in Snake Man, giving him the speed boost to all of his attacks. Okay, so he's just unrelenting onslaught on Kaido right now. Okay, he's getting hit from a bunch of different directions. Kaido holds up his Kanabo. He blocks one of the hits, but just as he blocks one of the hits, Luffy's other arm is like bouncing around and punches him straight in the face. I mean, and then he gets hit from another one. And this trajectory is so ridiculous that Kaido, as he's being pummeled, is like, he's altering his trajectory at a whim. Gum or rubber, maybe some kind of bungee gum should be able to do this, but not just regular rubber. This doesn't even make any sense. And okay, look, this is going to lead into a lot of other things, all right? I'll be making a video about this, certainly. But the general idea, and this is what was set up with the Gorosei talking about a certain devil fruit they had to rename, the implication is that Luffy's Gamu Gamu no Mi is not the Gamu Gamu no Mi. The Gorosei were not referring to anything revolving around Zunisha, or rather, it might have been involving Zunisha in a roundabout way, like going back to Joy Boy. Like maybe like Luffy might have the devil fruit that Joy Boy had. And Joy Boy is, of course, connected to Zunisha. So that's why after the Gorosei were talking about a fruit they had to change their name in the encyclopedia, we cut to Zunisha. So it's like, oh, well, Zunisha's connected to Joy Boy. This is Joy Boy's former fruit, okay? The popular opinion, I've seen a lot of people talk about this, is that Luffy, in fact, does not have the Paramecia Gamu Gamu no Mi. He has a mythical zone that allows him to turn into some sort of deity. And we also know this because of when he turned into the Gear 4th, Hyo was like, he looks like the Wisdom King or whatever. He looks like a figure from Japanese mythology, okay? Now, involving the mythical zone thing, I mean, that would be a really interesting twist, and I would love that. But, of course, that does create a few other problems, like, you know, Luffy, what about the 3 different transformations that zones have, like the half form and then the full form, you know? And then if he's a mythical, you know, like all the other stuff that will be involved in that, I'm not really sure. Just the fact of him going into Gear 4, that took him years and years and years of training alone. It wasn't like a natural form that he could go into. But if you want to say it's a mythical zone, I mean, that is pretty unusual to begin with. They're pretty rare. They're the rarest, even more than Logia. So if you want to bend the rules a little bit when it comes to mythical zones, that's the category to do it. Also, I mean, you might just go the same route or Oda might go the same route with Katakuri, where Katakuri was originally a Logia, now he's a special paramecia. Might be the same thing with Luffy. Also considering that the Mochi Mochi no Mi is supposed to be the upgraded form of the Gamu Gamu, but it might not be anymore because it's not really, like, the Gamu Gamu no Mi might not even exist. Or rather, hey, it might exist, it's just not Luffy's. They might run across another character that actually has the normal Gamu Gamu no Mi, but it's not even close to being as powerful as Luffy's is. So this is the thing, Oda's really messing with this. You know, 1,042 chapters into the series, by the way, the main power that you thought the character had doesn't actually have that power, right? It'd be like, he's like, yeah, so 500 chapters into Fairy Tail, turns out Natsu doesn't actually have fire powers. It's like, what? But anyway, yeah, he says rubber, regular gum, or regular rubber should not be able to do this. And this was something that I did think it was a little weird ever since back at Dressrosa, when Luffy went into Gear 4 for the first time against Doflamingo, and he was using Culverin, but it was like extending, but it seemed to be like extending infinitely. Like, Luffy always had a set range with his Devil Fruit, right? And so there was about 400, 500 Gamu Gamus given Oda's measuring scheme, right? But he had a limited amount he could stretch. He couldn't stretch around the entire planet if he wanted to. But the way that he uses Culverin and Jet Culverin and all these different techniques in Gear 4, it's just like seemingly infinite. He can just stretch out his arm for days on end until finally, boom, he hits whatever he's trying to hit, right? Like a heat-seeking missile kind of situation, right? Now, granted, that was a little bit more overly exaggerated in the anime, but still, it's crazy. Now, the other possibility here is that when Kaido is saying that, like, regular rubber should not be able to do this, he might not be referring to the fact that Luffy has another Devil Fruit altogether. He might be alluding to, like, Luffy going to the next level, a technique, a state that's beyond what regular rubber is capable of, and that might be very well his Gear 5th or his awakening, or if they're in fact one and the same. I've always felt like when Luffy went into his awakening, he would just call those techniques his Gear 5th. That's what I always referred to it as, okay? Well, anyway, we'll get back to that more at the end of the chapter, but let's continue on. So, Kaido is just getting the crap kicked out of him, and we actually see a few new drunk phases. I think this is Oda's thing, that Oda just really wants to draw Kaido in a bunch of, you know, funny little positions or, like, facial expressions before the fight is over. So it's like, all right, we did the common ones. We did, like, the sobbing drunk and the sad drunk and the, just, the depressed drunk and the angry drunk. So what's next? And I remember when I did that review, I listed off all these random ones like mysterious drunk, you know, and elusive drunk or whatever. But no, that's kind of what Oda is going with here. First, we have the flirty drunk phase where Kaido gets a little bit sexy, ladies and gentlemen, where Luffy's punching him in the face and Kaido just kind of puts his finger up to his lip and he's just like, oh, stop it, you. You rogue, you dashing, powerful rogue, you, punching me in the face. Boo, oh my. So that's gonna be funny. That's gonna be great when I see that animated. That's awesome. Oh my god, can you imagine if does Kaido go through these phases every time he gets drunk, or only when he's having like a really good fight with somebody? Like had him and Odin had a full-on fight, would he have went through all these phases fighting Odin? Did he go through all these phases when he like maybe fought Whitebeard or something back in the day? That would have been funny. And so Luffy's just like, you're still drunk? And he's like, boom. And so Luffy tries to hit him one more time, and he hits him a few times, but Kaido's like, oh, by the way, don't you not think that maybe you're not the only one that thinks that you could see the future? Yeah. Okay, so that implies right there that Kaido has the same level of observation hockey as Katakuri, or maybe not on the same level of Katakuri, but like finely tuned, high spec observation to the point where he can sense attacks coming. Maybe not like several seconds into the future like Katakuri could, but enough into the future that he can dodge those attacks. And so he manages to. He just disappears in like a puff of smoke. He just vanishes. Boom, turns into a giant dragon, and now he's in his thieving drunk phase. So the implication there was that he didn't always have the ability. The implication is he kind of... Kaido is one of those characters that's just so ridiculously powerful at this point. He's trained for years and years, and he's drank so much to get to this level that even if he doesn't know a technique, if it's something that he could do, like observation hockey, maybe he never really spent a lot of time on observation, but he's seeing Luffy use observation, so he's learning how to use it in that future sight way. And you can't really say that that's bullshit, because that's how Luffy learned it. That's 100% how Luffy learned it. In the thick of battle with Katakuri, Luffy started that battle having no idea how to do that, and then halfway through he was like, okay, I can do it. Now, he's not to the level of Katakuri either, but he was able to pick it up really fast. This doesn't just apply to the fact that Luffy's the main character. Kaido has a lot of training, and he's older, he has more experience than Luffy, so the fact that Kaido would have been able to pick this technique up in mid-battle the same as Luffy, that Luffy's using it, and he stole that technique as a thieving drunk, I guess that works. I guess you just drink enough sake and you can steal your opponent's techniques. It's like a Sharingan, kind of, in that situation. A Sharingan of, like, gin or rum, so to speak. It's sake. Yeah, Kaido drinks sake. So, at this point, this has happened before, I think, with Zoro, where Kaido just tries to straight up eat his opponent. But I was kind of wondering when this would happen with Luffy. When is Kaido just going to turn into the giant dragon and just eat Luffy? Well, it's now. He turns into a dragon, tries to bite Luffy. Luffy's body is so big, though, in his Gear 4th, he can't, like, swallow him in one bite, but he gets chomped on pretty bad, and Luffy's, like, opening his mouth, screaming, blood is splurting out. He's like, ah! You know, a giant dragon is biting him. Kaido has to work at it a little bit, but he does eventually manage to completely, swallow Luffy. Just, like, well, at least he's in his mouth, okay? And then Kaido proceeds to, like, spiral spring up into the sky above Onigashima, open his mouth, Luffy pops out, and then boom, point blank Boro breath right in Luffy's face. He has no time to dodge, okay? And he gets shot right back down. The Boro breath is so intense. It's like a laser beam that goes straight through Onigashima, straight through the live stage. We see some samurai and beast pirates running around. We see Yamato dodging out of the blast. We see Momonosuke seeing the blast from behind him. They don't get hit by it, but just it goes straight down, all right? So, Luffy takes this attack head on. Like, he's in Gear 4, so he has increased defense with his armament hockey and everything, but still, he was bitten. And remember, like, Luffy's weak to those kind of techniques. The same thing that happened with Hordy. When Hordy used his shark teeth to, like, bite Luffy, he's like, oh, my armament hockey's not good enough to deal with those kind of techniques yet, okay? Because Luffy, piercing or slashing damage was kind of Luffy's weakness already, just because of the nature of rubber. Blunt damage he could handle okay, but piercing damage plus somebody with Kaido using that piercing damage, yeah, that's pretty bad. And so Luffy gets a straight up hit right from that, and we just see this thunder crashing in the air. Luffy does get knocked off the side of Onigashima, like he goes straight through, like he falls straight through Onigashima, but he's in Bound Man, and so then he can use his, like, basically Geppo, where he just kicks the ground a bunch so he makes his engines basically go, and he can get back up. But Luffy's very wounded. He's in his Bound Man, and you gotta give him credit. Luffy's in Bound Man doing his, like, the pose he normally does, but he's all, like, woozy, like, you could tell, like, oh, Gear 4th, bound man, oh boy. So he's really dizzy, and he's just, like, smoke is just billowing off of him, right? And Kaido's kind of staring at him. He's like, oh, hey, you came back. That's cool, man. We could fight some more. That's awesome. Oh boy. So, Kaido's like, I'm gonna puke. Boro puke. Whatever. So Luffy's charging at him, and he's even thinking, Luffy does, like, he's not really one that, like, thinks a lot about how he's gonna win. He kind of just goes into his forms and just hopes for the best, right? He's like, last chapter, he's like, I'm going into Gear 4th, I'm giving this one last try, I'm just gonna keep going until it deflates, until it runs out, right? But Luffy's even wondering, like, hey, how many minutes do I have left? How many seconds do I have left? Probably not very much. And so Luffy realizes this is it. I don't have time to waste. So Luffy uses his Gear 4 to like Geppo jet propel his way behind Kaido. And he's like, you know, if I don't kick you out of this country, everyone's gonna starve. So I cannot have you win here. I cannot lose. I cannot. Even if it costs me my own life, okay? So Luffy charges up his Gamu Gamu no Supreme Kong Gun, or the better term that I saw, Over Kong Gun. This is gonna be greater than King Kong, better than King Kong. Over Kong. Boom! So it's not the King Kong gun, but it's the Over Kong gun. And this is a moment right where we get the namesake of the chapter, where right before Kaido gets hit by this awesome blow, he begins to bad talk the samurai. He begins to, like, he's drunk, and he's just like, you know what? The samurai, I'll tell you all about, I'm tired of this. You know, I've lived in this country for like 25 years or whatever. I've heard nothing but samurai this and samurai that for like over 2 decades at this point. I am tired of hearing about the samurai. You want to know what the deal is with samurai? And he talks about how they're weak. They're fundamentally weak. Not one of them, except for maybe Odin, would have been capable of taking me down, taking Kaido down. And it's like, none of them were strong enough. They say about their honorable deaths, that's only their justification because they're weak. They know they're weak and they know they can't win, but when they fight me and they die, they just call it an honorable death so they can hold on to that honor as a samurai. And Kaido basically just says, you know, if you're weak, you're weak. If you're strong, you're strong. There is no rationalizations with that. There is no justifications with that. It's either you're strong or you're weak. End of story, right? And you know, if you're truly strong and you can truly put on a brave face, you don't need those kind of rationalizations. You don't need a warrior code or like the honor of the samurai if you're just strong at the offset, right? But of course, Luffy takes umbrage to this. He's just like, you know, shut your face hole. You know, samurai are awesome. Samurai are strong. And then boom, Over Kong gun right in his face. It knocks Kaido down, but he's not out yet. And Luffy realizes this. Before he can even really see the damage that Kaido suffered from that blow, Luffy's charging right at him again. And he's just like, okay, look, that might have finished him off, but it probably didn't. It doesn't matter even if it did finish him off. I have to keep attacking, just no matter what. So Luffy's running at him again, charging up another Over Kong gun. Kaido releases his attack now. It's the upgraded form of his Thunder Bagura, which is the Roaring Thunder, Explosive Thunder Bagura, and then boom! Hits Luffy right dead center. So they basically just exchanged insanely powerful blows there with the Over Kong gun and the Roaring Thunder Bagura. So Luffy got hit by that. Kaido got hit by that. Oh my god, you can really see 2 things here. You can see the desperation on Luffy's face because the smoke begins to, or the inflation, the air begins to, you know, get pumped out of Luffy like it does at the end of every Gear 4. It's like a balloon deflating. Luffy literally just grabs his mouth and just... can't lose power, you know? Okay, so I guess he can forcibly keep Gear 4th activated. Probably going to cause more detriment to Luffy's life, but whatever. Luffy's already shaved off a few decades of his lifespan at this point throughout the series with Gear 2nd, Gear 3rd, Gear 2nd and Gear 3rd together, like against Moria. Let's not forget all the times he was injured. Impel down, okay, with the healing hormones. Luffy's already shaved a lot of his lifespan off, and this is probably going to continue with that trend. But now we look over at Kaido and we see his newest drunk phase, the last one we see in this chapter, and it's his homicidal or murderous drunk phase, okay? And we just see rings in his eye like Kaido just got the damn Rinnegan, okay? And he's just like, war, 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 war. So this is probably Kaido at his apex. This is, in terms of his drunk phases, this is the most dangerous one. Even more dangerous than his angry drunk phase is the homicidal drunk phase, all right? So, this is it. I mean, this chapter really sets it up like this is gonna be the final epic clash where we've established that Luffy only has one more attack left in Gear 4th. It's literally about to be... It's like that scene in Dragon Ball Super at the very end in the last episode when Goku and Frieza are fighting Jiren and Goku can barely stay in Super Saiyan anymore. Like he's going and trying to charge up and he's like fading in and out, like his Super Saiyan's like flickering on and off because he has nothing left hardly. Same exact vibe I'm feeling with Luffy right here, where he has to, like, okay, Gear 4th's gonna, I have to one more attack and then that's it. I'm gonna really feel the ramifications of this, okay? And so Luffy even says right here, if this final attack's not enough to finish you, then I guess I'm done. I guess I just lose. I have nothing left in the tank. So he charges up another over Kong gun, and Kaido charges up another Roaring Thunder cannon. Oh my god, you can imagine this scene in the anime. The theme is playing. It's so epic. It's like, bring it on! Gamu Gamu no! Like, they're charging at him. This is it. It's happening. And then all of a sudden, like, time stops. And, like, the way they do this in the anime, I really hope they do it in a way where, like, the music is playing, like it's hard rock music, like Kaido's theme or whatever. And then out of nowhere, the music just stops. You know, just like, don, don, don. It just stops when this scene occurs, where the bowler hat member of Cypher Pole Zero. Who's your least favorite character in the entire One Piece manga again? Because it might be this guy after this, after what he pulls here. He shows up, uses Tekkai, grabs Luffy. How does he do this? This is so weird how he, like, angles himself here. He, like, grabs Luffy's arm, but, like, it's not his arm, it's like his shoulder. So Luffy's arm is, like, huge because he's charging up his over Kong gun, so he's inflated it with his muscle balloon, right? So his arm is huge, and the CP0 agent grabs onto his shoulder using Tekkai, and I'm like, okay, but how would that hurt him? He's not using Shigon or anything. He's just using Iron Body. But I guess he's not trying to hurt Luffy. I think he's just trying to distract him. And at the last minute, Kaido notices that it's him, the Cypher Pole Zero agent, but he can't do anything. He's in the middle of, like, laying down the Kanabo. And so he flashes back. The only thing he can do is flash back to the moment when him and Odin were about to have their final clash. And then Higurashi Kurozumi transformed into Momo with the Mane Mane powers, distracted Odin. And so Kaido struck Odin down, but it was not because of the battle or because of their, you know, like, oh, he was stronger. It was because he was distracted. All he can do is remember that moment. And he's like, you even see the expression on Kaido's face. He still has the rings around his eyes like he's in his homicidal drunk phase, but, like, you see the desperation and the sadness in Kaido's eyes of, like, it's not even sadness, it's like it's just, imagine the worst thing that's ever happened into you in your life, and, like, you had a way to, like, change it, and you went back in time to change events, and it still plays out the exact same way. That's the look on his face. And so he brings down the Kanabo. Luffy is distracted by the Cypher Pole Zero agent. He does not attack Kaido, and the Kanabo crushes Luffy, dead center, hits him right here, face, chest, gets knocked down. I'm assuming his arm deflates in the process. The Cypher Pole Zero agent does not get hit. He bounces back, I guess, using Geppo to avoid the attack, and so only Luffy gets hit. And the last scene of the chapter is Kaido's face like, no, not again. Luffy just, we don't see his face, we just see the upper, like the lower part of his mouth as he's getting knocked down, like, you know, blood splurting up. And then the Cypher Pole Zero agent just being like, can't believe I actually pulled that off. Okay, so funeral arrangements for Cypher Pole Zero, random name that we will never know, will be held never, because he's not going to get a funeral, because Kaido will completely eviscerate this man's body at an atomic level. Kaido will literally grab this guy's singular atoms, rip the electron orbital off of them, tear apart the neutrons and the protons, tear them asunder, keep going down until, like, the bare basics, like the Planck length of this guy's existence, the quarks of this guy's existence, are ripped to shreds. Now, is the fight over? Is Luffy dead? So, you know, because Luffy's going on and on about how this is my final attack, this is it, if I don't win, it's game over. You know, I've read a lot of shonen in my day, ladies and gentlemen. Watched a lot of anime. Not as much as you might think. You know, there's a lot more people out there that have seen way more stuff than I have. But, This is the climax of, let's be honest here, so far in the story, this is like the most epic story arc in all of One Piece. Certainly the longest. Whether or not it's the most epic, I mean, that's up for debate. I mean, that's your own opinion there, but certainly it's a high point in the One Piece manga that Oda wants to convey here, right? And such a way to end a chapter where Luffy, the main character, just when you think it's going to be the final clash, like so many final clashes we've seen before in this story, Luffy against Crocodile, Luffy against Eneru, Luffy against Lucci, Luffy against Magellan, all these characters, Doflamingo, all the people that he's fought against in this series, where you think, they're going to use their strongest technique, Luffy's going to use his, and Luffy's going to sometimes just barely, but he's going to come out on top. And this time, he didn't. But I'll tell you what, ladies and gentlemen. This feels, right about now, this feels like the moment where you think the main character is out for good. He hits the ground, and he awakens to a new power that was hinted at before, but even he did not know that he had. A new power, a new ability. I think this is the moment right here, right here and now, where Monkey D. Luffy became an awakened fruit user. Right here, the last scene in this chapter. Now, you could still bring up like whether or not it's the Gamu Gamu no Mi or another kind of classification of devil fruit altogether, what name it is. But I don't know. I don't care what it is. But at the end of the day, Luffy has devil fruit powers, and he just awakened to said devil fruit powers. So, how about this? The awakening of this ability is to turn the area around you into rubber, and Luffy managed to turn the ground below him into rubber at this instant, unconsciously. He didn't know he did it, but he activated his awakening, turned the ground into rubber, or maybe even turned Kaido's Kanabo into rubber or something. Still taking damage, but taking far less damage than he would have originally. Even if he didn't turn the Kanabo into rubber, but turned the ground beneath him into rubber, so that when Kaido hits him, and it's like, oh, he's going to get slammed into the ground, he just bounces back up. And Luffy's like, what? And Kaido's like, huh? And CP0's like, what? And then we have a scene where Kaido and Luffy both, like, kind of look at each other, and they're like, look over at the CP0 agent, and he's like, did that guy just try to interrupt our fight? I think he did! The next chapter, Oda, you gotta do this, man. Next chapter, just make it 18 pages of just being a POV. A POV from that Cypher Pole Zero agent's perspective. Where it opens with him grabbing Luffy's shoulder, Kaido hitting him, and the rest of just Luffy and Kaido just... We see a flash of his life. We see everything about this dude. We see the moment he was born, being raised by his parents, or maybe no parents. He might have been an orphan, being trained on the island to become a Cypher Pole agent. His first assignment, when he gets the fancy clothing, when he puts on the mask, the moments he had fighting Drake during this arc, everything like that. And then it just the last bit of life just fades out, and he dies. So, I don't think Luffy's out of the fight here. I'm very confident that this is going to be a moment where, characters at their lowest, you think there's nowhere for them to go, and it's their rock bottom, and they're dead, and there's no way out of it, but then they manage to get back up. And you know what, that's good as long as it's not an ass pull. That's good as long as it's been established. And I think Luffy's awakening and stuff, well, Devil Fruit awakenings in general have been established for, hundreds of chapters at this point. Way back in Doflamingo and Dressrosa, they established this. Think of it this way. Hellsing. You like Hellsing? Any Hellsing fans out there? Hellsing, when Ceres looked like she was about to be killed by Zorin, and then got her amazing power up there when she drank Pip's blood. It's just like, and wrecked her shit. It's just like, that's a good way to do it, because that was established for the entire series. You know, when you drink blood, you become a true vampire, and it happens. So if Luffy were to have his awakening here, or if his awakening is his Gear 5th, or whatever you want to call it, if that was happening right here and that saved Luffy's life, I would not be upset. And then he proceeds to kick the crap out of the Cypher Pole agent, and then Kaido and him can continue their battle in earnest. That's what I think's going to happen. But I don't think the fight is going to happen. There's not going to be many more chapters of it, especially with a cliffhanger like this. Maybe the next chapter or the chapter after that. Like the next chapter, they can resolve the Cypher Pole agent interfering. Luffy can be like, I have this new power. What is this? And then after that, we can have another cool climax where Kaido and Luffy resume their battle. And then the chapter after that would be the finale, like the grand finale, something like that. But yeah. That's the chapter. Like I said, I will go into much more detail with this once I get back home. But I appreciate all of you guys. Apologies once again for the, the hotel setup or whatever. But it was an amazing chapter. I couldn't go a day without talking about it, of course. Thanks, everybody. This will be Tekking, and there's no Barry, but Tekking and Ice-T signing out. Later, everyone.